Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today we've got the pleasure of watching Fiverr from the North American server playing in their T110E5. This is the top tier American heavy tank, and it really doesn't really get the attention it deserves in World of Tanks. A lot of people brush aside the T110E5 only to focus on vehicles like the Super Conqueror or more exciting vehicles that either have autoloaders or have higher alpha damage. I'm looking at you, AMX M454. And you can understand why a vehicle like this would be suffering with Wargaming massively overbuffing the AMX M454 and then dialing it back a notch. Fiverr is going to make an aggressive play at the start of this game. They're going to be using durability, a gun rammer, and a turbo on this tank, and they're using the turbo to full effect to aggressively push over the bridge to try and take the central position. I really like a bridge push on this map. Maybe not so much in a vehicle like a T110E5. I always worry about the big weak point on top of the vehicle. And I will make this play more often if there's actually a lot of artillery on the enemy team. Because if there's a lot of artillery, by getting close to their positions, you can prevent them from even being able to shoot you with the big old mountain that's in front of you. However, Fiverr is going to push the bridge anyway and get themselves into an absolute barn-stomping brawl of a game here in the top-tier American heavy tank. So, full disclosure, Fiverr added the caveat that they were hunting for their third mark of excellence in the T110E5, which is why they have a liberal application of high explosive anti-tank rounds in this battle. It's just not even really a coincidence that recently a lot of the bigger games that have been submitted on whatreplays.eu, and even a game like this in the T110E5, that players are packing more and more premium rounds. It's something that I really want to address in this video as well, is that with the way that Wargaming are just constantly making micro adjustments to the economy, either by giving out more premium consumables, either by just everyone's actually got to the stage where they have all of the vehicles that they want, tech trees aren't going into the game nearly as quickly as at least they used to, and more experience bonuses allow people to progress through the game. Once everyone's actually managed to get all of the credits they need for the vehicles, what really much more is there to spend them on if you don't want to take part in Wargaming's extravagant auctions? And what has been really crazy recently is that even though we've had these replays on the channel where people have been using a lot of premium ammunition, they've still been breaking even in the post-game stats. And that's because they're either running credit boosters, which everyone seems to have a whole glut of, or they're in a clan that's running clan boosters, or maybe they're even just doing small things like platooning, which even adds, I believe, I think it's 15% credits as well as also experience in the post-game. And all of these things just stack up and up and up. And when you're an incredibly good player, like Fiverr clearly is, and you can not bounce those premium rounds but make them work, they just allow you to still break even when you're playing your tier 10 tanks with all of the bonuses that are described. Alright, so far Fiverr has picked apart equal and lower tier tanks that weren't really too much of a challenge, not even a scrape off their hit points. However, with an Object 907 here, this is where things could get a little bit hot, as the Clan Wars Soviet medium tank is now going to be locked in Mortal Kombat. But luckily, Fiverr isn't alone. He's also got a Stridsvagn 103B with them, and they're going to try and snap at the top of the Object 907. And you can see, as soon as the 907 is there, Fiverr really starts to struggle. He's not going to back off from that fight because I guess he's scared of the 907. He's backing off from that fight, hoping to be able to get some more damage into the AE Phase 1. Looks like Fiverr actually decided to reload an AP round there, or was it an HE round? I heard the intuition ding. But then deciding that they really needed the high explosive anti-tank round to finish off the AE Phase 1, because that vehicle from above, especially, if you do hit the turret, the heat just does absolute wonders against well-angled armor. But Fiverr, you're going to have to definitely calm down here, take a deep breath. You're absolutely dominating in this game, but a few shots not going the way that you wanted them to. Luckily, however, the T110E3 misses, and Fiverr's going to go to town on the lower plate of the E3. His team up on hit points, but down on tanks right now. Luckily, Fiverr, still with all 2,500 hit points left of the T110E5, has more than enough to get rocking and rolling. So the E3, I believe, is that firing an HE round there at the STRV 103B? And finally, the 907 finds the first penetrating shot on Fiverr, but now up to 6,000 damage, and with a whole glut of vehicles in front of them, behind them, to their south, to their north, Fiverr's going to have their work cut out for them here if they want to go after the STRV. Well, help the STRV go after the 907 is what I'm trying to suggest. So, working the front of that Soviet medium tank. Unfortunately, this STRV wants to be able to get a shot, and this is an awkward scenario where Fiverr is kind of driving out in front of the STRV, but in this situation, he's got to keep farming. He's got to keep getting those shots in. And if the STRV really wanted to get the shells, I guess he should go out a little bit wider. It's a tough scenario, and it's really where you need a turret to be functional to be able to get into these battles. But there you go. Crypt Kicker in there. STRV 103B finishing off the STB1 before they're able to get the flanking play in. And wow, Fiverr is definitely got the Fort Knox of gold right now. Now down to a single high explosive anti-tank round. And this is where the E5 is just better than a Super Conqueror. It has the DPM, 2,727 base DPM, but it has that wonderful lower plate that just isn't so much of a weak point like the Super Conqueror is. And it's also got a lot more grunt in the engine with a power to weight ratio of over 17, which allows this vehicle to just shift. And just like that, Fiverr made this 10,000 damage plus game look like one of the easiest rounds of World of Tanks you have ever seen. But again, still with 4 vehicles left and 2,000 hit points left on the enemy team, just how much can Fiverr claim for themselves here in these throes of battle? The Centurion 7-1 puts a Hesh round right through the front of Fiverr's vehicle there, but it is not enough. The second one doesn't go in, and Fiverr finishes off the tier 9 British medium tank before turning their attention to an autoloader. And oh dear. Oh no, the Char is actually reloaded in this situation. Fiverr, even though so far up on hit points, is still playing rock solid tight here. Still side-scraping against the French auto-loading medium tank while finishing them off. And now down to only 1 armor-piercing round. Gonna have to hope this one goes in. And then after this, it's 2 high explosive rounds in this tank. Pretty much the ultimate game you could possibly ever hope to have in World of Tanks, let alone in a T110E5. Now putting a round into the back of the Standard B, and 1 HE round between them and Glory, and I guess they don't need to fire it. That would have been a cool Faden's medal. What an absolute insane farm by Fiverr here in their T110E5, and I think that they just built on that momentum. They were putting shot after shot after shot into their opponents pretty much on reload, showing you what you can do with enough armor. Definitely not perfect armor. Its lower plate is vulnerable, and it does have a weak point on top. But as you can see, it's enough to be able to deal with when you're not sitting still and getting absolutely spanked by premium rounds. And just having side armor that allows you to side scrape much better and over angle your hull compared to a Super Conqueror, managing to also hide that lower plate, means that the T110E5, when you can apply pressure to your opponents, can often make them wilt. And that's exactly what Fiverr did here. And congratulations to you, Fiverr, with this absolute gargantuan game of World of Tanks with 12,400 damage in just 7 minutes, hitting all but 1 shell against the enemy tanks and penning 35 of those. Fiverr picks up their 3rd mark of excellence, as if it was absolutely a casual thing to do. In addition to this, Fiverr gets 1,710 base experience points, a steel wall for managing to ricochet 4,360 damage. Good luck doing that in a Super Conqueror, exposing your lower plate, and also a high caliber. And again, a passing mention should be made to the relatively low credit loss that Fiverr had here of 17,000, which I think pretty much most of the community wouldn't even batter an eye about when it comes to having a 12,000 damage plus game. So, before all of you jump out and go and get yourself a T110E5, I think this might be a case of it's the player, not the tank, as the T110E5 has one of the more mediocre win ratios of any of the tier 10 heavy tanks. Unlike the new French competition in the form of the AMX M454, which, to be fair, has been nerfed recently, but let's take a look to see what its performance has been just over the last 3 days, for example. Has it really been nerfed by enough? Well, I think this is the age-old problem of when a tank becomes meta amongst the best players in the community. then it's probably going to stay there, with the AMX M454 still packing 52.74% average win ratio in the last 3 days, even with the nerfs to that tank. And so, while you can absolutely smash your way through your opponents by focusing on the damage per minute and forgiving armor of the T110E5, yeah, don't think everyone's going to be able to just jump into this and absolutely crush their games like Fiverr did here. So Fiverr, congratulations to you on your 3rd mark of excellence in this monster 12,000 damage game. Thank you so much for uploading it on the What Replays website, and thank you so much for putting QuickyBaby in the title to be able to get my attention. I love the aggression, I love the way you didn't give your opponents any room to breathe, and I have to admit, it left me exhausted nearly at the end of this one. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that's it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.